Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Where's the link? Okay, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday edition of Sidelines. Got a lot to talk about today. Over the weekend, we settled the dust. College basketball, Alabama, of course, SEC championship wrapped it up Wednesday night. Texas A&M finishes at 15-3 in the SEC. Alabama at 16-2. Kentucky got in there, and Missouri for the top 4 seeds in the tournament. So going to be a fun conference tournament in Nashville this week. So we're going to be joined here in just a minute by John Hattler, voice of UT Martin up in Martin, Tennessee. Knows college basketball, mid-majors, majors, knows it all, football. Love having him on here, getting his insight commentary. Joined in the second segment by Johnny Ballpark Franks out of Nashville. Johnny always has a great take on the big picture, not afraid to voice his opinion. That's never a problem, which is what we want our guests to do. Free speech is alive and well here on Sidelines. Hour number 2, Frank Duffy checks in back in Tiger Town. No, actually, he is back in Big Canoe, north of Atlanta, then heading back right after the show for the Detroit Tigers spring training as he continues his whirlwind tour, and then it's off to St. Patrick's Day. Before you know it, in New Orleans, we'll be marching in the parade, giving us live updates. That'll be fun. And in the fourth segment, Wess Moore checks in. ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock will check in with us to talk about, hey, Razorbacks, what's going on with Missouri, the SEC, West getting in again. Hogs are fighting for their tournament life right now. They're finished 8-10 in the SEC. They're going to need to win several games. They lost, unfortunately, the last 3 games. That murderer's row last week of Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And, Tennessee, they lost Saturday at Auburn. I'm telling you, Coach Brady's right. We had him on the show last week. Talk about the grind. You're playing 2 games a week. It's come on. It's not that tough. You guys all think you're ready to go to the NBA. You're going to play about 4 games a week. Might play 5. Play games back to back. That's the SEC tournament. The grind is because if you're in great physical and mental shape, you can handle it. So, I don't want to hear any excuses about the grind. I'm with Coach Brady as well. Like what he said as well about lottery picks. Hey, he goes, I've coached a couple of them in my day. Don't tell me you got a couple of lottery picks on your team when these guys are going out and putting up 6 or 7 points and 5 rebounds, back to back. That's not a lottery pick. So I think a lot of people are real quick to project somebody to be a high draft pick, high lottery pick period. He's going to be ready for the majors right away. I think the stats are proving that, and John Hattler would agree, you bring guys in to a college baseball program, SEC style, with what we have, the competition in this league, a lot better than going into the minors, unless you're getting, as Coach Tom said Saturday, right up. You can't walk away from that. But you go to college on any level, D1, D2, D3, especially in Division 1 or 5 mid-major. Look, they're good baseball teams everywhere. You just look at Auburn had to work a full 9 Saturday and Sunday to get the wins over. Yeah, sweet. But you're not going to have an easy out anytime you play baseball because there's just a lot of good baseball players. Here's Monday through Saturday, sidelines.live. And go to the website, sidelines.live. Hit the orange Patreon button at the top. Join IPTAM. I pay $10 a month. We need your support. as we grow this show for travel and getting to the SEC tournaments and media days and games and tailgates. But we have great listeners. We know we will get there. So, John Hattler, I'm sure you got a chance to watch a lot of basketball over the weekend. It doesn't matter what level it is, the players know. And you talk about, as I said, Coach John Brady was on with us Thursday talking about the grind. And he says, you're playing a couple of games a week in college. It's not the toughest thing to do. It may be if you're injured, but these guys all think they're going to the NBA. You're going to play 3 or 4. You might play 5 games in a week. Now's the time to put all that whining, bitching, and moaning to bed, isn't it?
It is. And, of course, a lot of my point of reference, as we've talked about, my university up here, the University of Tennessee at Martin, and you saw that happen with our men's team in the Ohio Valley Conference Tournament. I came in with the number 3 seed and had an unfortunate incident on the Thursday night in the ball game where some emotions kind of took over, and we had 2 of our players suspended, and we were playing very, very well and had to go into that Friday. We were down, I think it was 11 points with 4 minutes to go in the quarterfinals, came back and won, then turned around and only had 7 healthy bodies on the bench that on Friday night in the semifinal loss to Tennessee Tech, and only 6 of them were scholarship players. And you're right. We've seen guys transfer in here, and Ryan Ritter's done a spectacular job of rebuilding this program and went from 6 wins last year to 19 this year. And the big thing that he did was he had to go find a bunch of guys that you said that would weigh the bitching and the moaning and kind of grow into their roles. And when injuries hit and everything, they move forward. But, college kids now, I always said I was a mental midget when I was playing baseball here at UT Martin. But I think the mental game of it now is so much more important than it was 30 years ago because of just a lot of different things that are coming at these young men and women, whether it be social media or unrealistic family expectations or just the me first mentality and everybody wanting something more and faster. So, yeah, you're right. Just putting the good of the team above the individual is very important, and these kids are having to learn how to do that.
Well, and I totally get where you're coming from talking about UT Martin in the conference tournament having 7 healthy bodies. You can have 13 players on scholarship. You're lucky if you have 10, maybe 11. And I think that so many people, wouldn't you agree? Guy has a good first game or 2. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. Oh, he's going to the league. He'll be 1 and done, or he'll be done in 3. What really tells everything is the sophomore year. How do they follow up a great freshman year? And people use that term sophomore slump. And I'm not real big into euphemisms and just repeating stupid stuff. That's on that player. And also, you got to remember, the more games you play, the better the scouting report other teams have on you. Right.
Right. And I think that sophomore slump, I'm like you. I think the sophomore slump is simply freshman expectations. You have a freshman come in that competes at a high level, and instead of understanding that may have been their top end, or there may not be a larger amount of growth, that sophomore slump is a tough deal. And we saw it with Zach Wallace here at UT Martin, who's now at Arkansas State. Had a phenomenal freshman year, turned around and did well his sophomore year, but it wasn't quite what everybody expected out of his freshman year. But we forget how good of a freshman year that he had. And and again, as with the college kids, the emphasis on mental health now, again, like I said a minute ago, the social media, even my father looked at me. I've got a senior in high school and an 8th grader, and my dad looked at me the other day and said, I don't know how you're raising kids in this day and time with all the stuff that is thrown at them. And there's more on these young student athletes' plates now than there ever was before.
Yeah. I got a question for you because you're a baseball player, and we had Butch Thompson, Auburn's coach, on Saturday morning. He's kind enough to join us on Saturdays. But several questions have come in, and just looking at baseball stadiums in college. And one of them is, I love the idea, Auburn has the green monster like the Red Sox, and teams have that big wall in left field. Will the rules allow a background in college Someone says, another one of the listeners says, I have no idea. I just know they have to keep the batter's eye clear. Not sure if there is a color requirement. Or you could put a big, banner out there with the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. I don't know what you're doing out there, but what are the rules? You might know.
As I understand it, you have to have a clear, unabated, solid color in the outfield, dark color. Now, it's not delineated what necessarily dark is. I know here at UT Martin, we've got a navy batter's eye. You see a ton of green everywhere else, but ours is navy. So I think as long as there's a clear delineation between a white baseball and a solid color background, I think that's what the rule states, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
Well, we're going to find out because it is something I'm seeing all these proposed that fans of different schools are sending what they want out in their left field. And here's another one. Think about this for the Green Monster. What if you had a video board out there and you could change it to reflect the opponent that you're playing? And I'm sure if, Tennessee were playing Alabama, they might have something special to say to them out there in the Green Monster in left field. Or y'all at UT Martin, it would be something that everywhere you go, it'd be, kind of a personal character. But we may have stumbled onto something, John Hattler. I think someone could even buy ads. You could sell sponsorships to sponsor the Green Monster. And have a movie.
We're a program of limited resources up here. So we're trying to do whatever it is that we can. But I can see the baseball field from my office. I look right out the window and I see our batter's eye. Someone hit one about 2,000 feet. It landed in my office. But we got a big scoreboard on the left field line. And on the back side of it, I know that there have been people in our community that have suggested that we put a jumbotron really on the backside of the scoreboard where ads can face out onto Skyhawk Parkway and to where kind of a lot of traffic flies through. But no, I think it's a great idea. I think you're going to see more and more jumbotron and football type atmosphere stuff coming into baseball because college baseball is flat out cranking money right now, especially at the big boy level. That used to be a non-revenue generating sport. It's not anymore.
I remember in college baseball, I was at Auburn when Bo Jackson was there. I was there on a Sunday afternoon and I raised my right hand on a stack of Bibles. I actually saw him hit a grounder. The shortstop did not even have the ball. I saw this with all three of my eyes. Did not even have the ball in his glove ready to do the turn. Bo had already blown past first base. I've never seen anything like that. Greg Olson, Frank Thomas. Then you had Bobby Thigpen. You had, Thunder and Lightning, Rafael Palmeiro and Will Clark at Mississippi State, LSU. It started really going, but the smaller schools, had been playing baseball and emphasizing it for a long time. South Alabama with Eddie Stanky. I think the resurgence in college baseball it's big and it's getting bigger. You know why? Because you're not having all the BS that you've got with football NIL and basketball NIL. Hell, I was talking to a lifelong Razorback fan I met at a dinner in Jonesboro up at Arkansas State Thursday night. And he is as connected and hardcore Arkansas as it gets. And he said, it's getting so hard. I don't even know who's on the team week to week, day to day. And I'm telling you, baseball, these guys transfer. I know they do, but it's not all you hear about. Baseball is the greatest spectator game there is. So maybe that's why it's growing. But John, I say this to every fan out there: go to baseball games whenever you can. There's no better place to kick back and enjoy and talk business. Hey, you might even be able to write it off.
That's right. We sit there yesterday. Kent State came down to UT Martin, and we just kind of park our trucks down the right field line and pop out a chair and hang out with my buddies and watch the games as much as you can. So you're right. Baseball is a social sport, and especially at the collegiate level, it's always been fun. But I think the viewing sports public is starting to watch baseball, college baseball now, more than they used to. I'm flipping through Twitter yesterday, and there's a lot of people in Tennessee talking about Tennessee baseball, but yet the Lady Vols are playing in the SEC championship. It had no business being there, and yet there they are. So I think you're right. The baseball, all purists like us, but then even the casual fans are really starting to get back into college baseball.
Yeah, and it's a great thing because you've got 35 players. You got to divide up 11.7 scholarships. My big push is make football a separate island for those 85. How many scholarships does UT Martin can they give in football?
In football, it's 60. I think it's 65 or 67 because the FCS level gets around 20 less than FBS.
Okay.
So we're at that, I think 65, 67 number right there.
Okay. But bottom line, whatever level, FBS, FCS, D1, D2, whatever you want to call it, you need to make football separate and then fully fund baseball. Okay. Real quick before we go to the break, got to mention this. I'm sure you know this, John Hattler, as a Southern boy. Rest in peace, Gary Rosington. He was the inspiration behind the lyric to this classic. Now they call you Prince Charming. Can't speak a word when you're full of lewds. Say you'll be all right come tomorrow, but tomorrow might not be here for you. The last surviving member of the original Leonard Skinner band, which went down near Galesburg, Mississippi, 20 October 1977. I don't think any of us will ever forget that night and what it was like. I don't know if I went to school the next day. I don't think Michael Sagg went to school for a week. Michael Jordan took off 2 weeks. But R.I.P. Gary Rosington. Skinner will live forever, though. Hey, we'll be right back after this break talking more baseball, basketball with the Sandhill Crane Hunter of the Year, John Hattler.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
John Hattler, this time of year, like you say, you've got, well, here's what's happening. You've got college basketball wrapping up the regular season, now going into the conference tournaments. You've got college baseball cranked up about a month ago, and spring practice has kicked off. You got gymnastics. Of course, you got the women's basketball. You got softball. And John, how many people say this? You hear it. Doesn't it drive you crazy? Well, you got the women's softball. I don't think they want to see a bunch of men playing softball in the Wednesday night beer league, on TV. But I just think about that. This is a great time of year. And you talk about going to baseball games. I really do think that when you look, Coach Thompson said Saturday, I never knew this. There have only been 18,000 men in America who've been able to say they've put on a Major League Baseball jersey and make it to what they call the big show. There's 330 million people in this country today, and we started playing baseball a long time ago. So when someone says, when a guy's a freshman or in high school, they put that pressure on him. He's going to be in the league. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. That's a lot to carry, isn't it?
It's a ton. It took me 20 years to realize this, that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Okay. But I do remember, being in high school and I had a pretty good senior year, and there were people that albeit looking back, didn't really have a grasp on anything, nor did I, that thought, well, heck, you may get drafted. Because at that time in Major League Baseball, I think there were 50 rounds back in the early 90s. Well, that was a ton of people. I mean, you're talking about well over 1,500 people getting drafted at that time. And I wasn't getting drafted, because there were college kids and there were high school kids that were elite level players. And when you're talking about, again, they don't have that many rounds anymore, but 1,500 kids a year, college and high school, foreign players out of Dominican Republic and, Japan, wherever else, you have to be elite just to get the opportunity to go to rookie ball, the pros, to go to rookie ball. And you were talking about a sport that's a grind, especially at the collegiate level. It's baseball. It's baseball and softball. I mean, it's nuts because you're playing 5 games a week. You're traveling on the road. You're spending the night. You're hyping, especially at the mid-major level, where you're going to run. If you're a UT Martin or a Tennessee Tech, last year beat Tennessee, and we beat Alabama. UT Martin, we beat Alabama 2 years in a row. They week, but 2 years in a row, we went on the road in the middle of the week to beat Alabama. Now, the truth of it is, I wouldn't call them throwaway games, but we're throwing our number 2, number 3. Alabama's throwing their number 8. And we can jump. We have the opportunity to win. So when you're at this level, the mid-major level, you got those big midweek games and your conference games on the weekend. It becomes a very, very difficult grind, baseball and softball.
Yeah, because you cannot tell your players not to give 110% to win. I'm with you. There are no throwaway games. Everybody matters, and there are no throwaway games. All right. I'm going to throw this question at you. And this is coming from a listener. Excuse me. But the question is, what are the 2 hardest things to do in the spring? Hit a fastball and kill a turkey like my good friend Tom back behind us? I mean, think about that. You got to lay there on the ground. If you have allergies, every bit of pollen and everything, your nose is running. You can't move because if turkeys – they can hear everything. They can see everything. God help us. If they could smell, there'd never been a turkey killed in history. But I don't know, hitting a fastball or calling a turkey in.
Well, the one thing you forgot. Yeah, the one thing you forgot, though, about the turkey hunting is Mr. No Shoulders.
That's what I was snakes crawling over your legs.
That's right. But I'll tell you, I've probably the hardest thing in sports to do. I've got a whole new healthy respect for hockey players, but I still think the hardest thing in the athletic world to do, I really think it's 2 things. I think number 1, it's to hit a 90+ mile an hour fastball. And I think, or a baseball in general, but especially a 90+ mile an hour fastball with movement, or hit a golf ball straight on a consistent basis. Those are 2 of the hardest things to do.
Yeah, and you watch golfers, and you look at a guy like David Duval, who really hit the weights hard. What happened to him? He tore his back up. Tiger Woods. These guys, you look at the athletes that are playing golf today. They look more like what we think of in an athlete. They don't look like Rowdy Gaines or Michael Phelps. But their strength training. Then you look at guys like, you see the movie Kingpin, when he's walking into the International Bowling Hall of Fame in Reno, Nevada. Woody Harrelson is kind of intimidated by all these great athletes, and he's grabbing slices of pizza from them as he's walking down the deal. Then I think of guys that were just pictures of a great physical physique, like Craig Stadler, the Walrus, But the guy was a great golfer. So, I don't know. Golf is, and I don't play golf except if it's a company tournament. They put me, kind of with the best people and don't count my score, but I can hit the hell out of a ball. But that's not it. It's the short putting game and all. And John, this. It's the mental part of sports that will get you more often than not, isn't it?
It is, because when you get in your own head, you're done. And that's one of the things you talk to college coaches, high school coaches. That's the one thing they say now about, off the record, of course, is, he or she is getting in their own head. And that's just a word for they're thinking too much and they're just not reacting. And again, I think that goes back to we're throwing so much on young athletes at such a young age. We're putting more mileage on a pitcher's arm. We're putting more miles on a female's soccer and basketball players' legs. And along with all that mileage comes training, comes coaching, comes instruction. And I think that builds up instead of just, you and I went out in the backyard and threw. That's what we did. We threw a baseball to go have fun. That's what we did to kill time. And you learned a lot. We'd play pickup games with a broomstick and a chert rock. I mean, that's how we learned how to play the game of baseball. But now it's just all this specialized garbage at 8 years old and game changers and ID camps and all this stuff that is just putting so much more in the gray matter of talked about in the last segment. There's so much more thrown at them now that just extrapolates over time. And I think you see more kids with some issues between the ears trying to figure things out.
Well, we have Dr. James Andrews, the renowned orthopedic surgeon, and we have him on the show from time to time. And, growing up watching him and Dr. Houston before him on the sidelines at Auburn, and look at sports medicine everywhere you go. It's a big deal. But he talked about these Super Bowls. He gets to be on the sidelines at a lot of Super Bowls. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago, Chiefs, Bucks. Of the 108 players on those two rosters, there were 93% of them were multi-sport athletes in high school. Tom Brady played everything that they kept scoring. And someone on the show Saturday, maybe Yancey Porter, our friend from Rebel Yell Hotline in Oxford, which is on Monday nights, Sports 56 WHBQ, 6 to 7 p.m. in Super Talk, Mississippi. Shameless plug, kind of like the days of David Brenner being on the Johnny Carson show. I'll be at the Sands Hotel Thursday night, but through Sunday, get your tickets. But I think about what Yancey said. He's got two young kids that are playing baseball at Lafayette County High School there in Oxford. You don't see as many arm injuries with the guys that are doing the baseball and the football. And again, Dr. Andrews said this. He said, we used to see maybe 10 or 12 Tommy John's cases a year with young baseball players. We might see several hundred now. And you're right, the body can only take so much, but he recommends taking off a couple of months, not just doing nothing, but from that just ridiculous, you can't go balls to the walls every day. Your body will fall apart. So yeah.
Ryan Jenkins is our head coach here at UT Martin baseball, and he was a standout catcher at Auburn. And he told me, we were having a conversation one time about, it was secondhand from Dr. Andrews, but the same thing. And Dan Marino said it in NFL football. Your arm has a finite number of throws. Yeah. And right now, these surgeons have figured out ways for shoulder care. They can take care of the shoulder, but it's right here, the elbow, that you can't do anything about. And so you have that finite number of throws in there. And UT Martin baseball had three elbows get blown out last year, 3. And you just you hit that stuff, and it's so insanely difficult to manage the elbow. And you're not texting. I mean, people know this. My 14-year-old daughter tore her ACL playing basketball in December. Had surgery last Wednesday. She plays a lot of soccer and a lot of basketball. As a father, I look back and go, am I putting too many miles on my daughter's legs? Or was this just something that happened? Because females are 3 times as likely to tear an ACL than male. But there's just.
I did not know that statistic 3, because I've got 2 boys and 2 girls. And fortunately, I haven't had that. But that's, no. I mean, an orthopedic surgeon, having one there with your team is invaluable. I mean, and knowing, and Johnny, you familiar with an organization? This is Johnny Ballpark Franks is on the screen with us now in Nashville. And Johnny is up in the center of Tennessee. Of course, Johnny Ballpark Franks, John Hattler is the play-by-play voice of the UT Martin. And I think about this, with sports injuries, Kevin Skarbinski and Jack Crow and Dr. Andrews is the medical director, coachsafely.org down in Birmingham. They're trying to coach 80,000 coaches a year through a program where they're ready, where they can recognize things. Not that they're doctors, but being able to recognize things, knowing CPR, things to look for. And it's not about making the games or the players softer, because I'm not going to go for that. No one is. But it's about being smarter with your health, because, you're going to live a long time, and your body's got to be there past your senior year of high school or college. So that's an incredible statistic. Females 3 times more likely to tear an ACL than men. But Johnny, jump in here with John Hattler for a few minutes before he's got to go. But been talking about how popular college baseball is becoming in today's world. I think it's because it's I know there's NIL in the portal with it, but it's more about the sport, and it's exciting.
Let me first go back to the situation. I didn't even know that stat, but my eyes told me. But see, the thing is, my eyes told me that's true. And just in my experiences working in college athletics, I saw this all the time with women's basketball, with our softball players. So that doesn't surprise me, mainly because I witnessed it. It seemed like if you play 4 years of college basketball at women's basketball, if I remember correctly, I think everybody except for 1, maybe 2, did not have an ACL injury. And this is where we go back to the old, it's the philosophy, whether you stay in one sport 12 months out of the year or you diversify and play different sports. And I know that the parent wanting to see their next Greg Maddux develop or their next Nolan Ryan, they want them to play one sport only, forget about basketball, forget about football, but it protects your body to be able to give your body a break from one sport by developing muscles that you normally wouldn't develop by playing these other sports. And that's why most of these orthopedic surgeons across the country encourage these student athletes to participate in more than one sport and give their arms a break.
Yeah. John, you've opened up our eyes. I know about, I've volunteer coached 14 years track and field and cross country, boys and girls, middle school, including my 3 kids. And then I got 4, but I never knew that statistic. That's something to be on the lookout for. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that until my daughter tore hers. That's right. Yeah. I didn't know about that until my daughter tore hers. And so it's just a situation where there's Q angles and all kinds of other stuff that they're looking at now and trying and mitigate it. And we're, it's a lot on these kids, and especially when they start playing at an early age. And like you said, basketball players, especially with the floor and the cutting and the things that they do, it's very difficult to avoid those injuries, as Mr. Frank said. And that's part of it, and trying to make sure the core strength and landing on their heels and not their balls of their feet when they jump, all these different kind of things we're going to have to concentrate on now through the rehab process with my daughter. And I've learned more about this than I ever wanted to learn, but we're learning.
Hey, Rob,
now.
I had to look up to heaven for a second, thinking my dad just showed up when John called me Mr. Frank. So that kind of, the coffee, who needs coffee when you get a statement like that? Johnny is fine, John.
Okay. I can do that.
John, hey, John, real quick, tell people where you, I know you got to get going. Tell people, you are obviously, you're the play-by-play voice at UT Martin football and basketball, but you also are a banker on top of that. And
I'm banking right now, by the way. Weekly County Motors is in here, so
So tell people, I'm going to let you go, but tell people how they can get a hold of you, because everybody in West Tennessee needs to meet John Hattler, because he knows Tom Rainey, he knows Mark Ham, he knows David Baker, he knows a lot of good people.
John Hattler, a security bank and trust company up here in Martin, Tennessee. You can follow me on Twitter at Hattler06. And if I'm the easiest person to find in Weakley County, Tennessee. So we enjoy it. Go Skyhawks. And hey, thanks for having me on. Johnny was nice, and I hope we get to do this again.
Good seeing you, John.
We definitely will. And I'm ready to have some Sandhill Crane with you, man. Take care. We'll do it again soon.
See you.
All right, that man, I'll tell you, he's a busy man this morning. Milburn Drysdale makes an appearance on the show at the Commerce Bank of Martin. But Johnny, I tell you, man, this is a great time of year. And when you're on it's like watching a 30 for 30 because of your knowledge. We got all the sports, spring practice, baseball kicking off, basketball tournaments. This is going to be a great week in Nashville. The SEC tournament is coming up. We got about 40 seconds before the break. Are you excited like we all are about what's happening?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll be there, starting on Wednesday, downtown Nashville for the SEC tournament. So I am very positive about the things that we're seeing on the courts, but there are also some things I'm sure we'll get into that I'm not really pleased about sports in general and with some of these decision makings. And I question folks' integrity, for example, and I can't wait to get into that conversation.
Oh, yeah, look, that's what we're going to do. Free speech, the First Amendment. It's the first on the list in the Constitution, and it is alive and well with true grit journalists like Johnny Ballpark Franks. Rob Browne here with you for the next hour and a half. Got a lot to cover. We're not afraid. We'll be right back. All right, Johnny Ballpark Franks. I don't know about you, Johnny, but here in parking at the farm, we're being invaded by ladybugs. They are everywhere. I mean, you open up the door, they're taking over. Is that a problem in Middle Tennessee in what they call the mid-state or up on the plateau?
Yes, it is a problem. Luckily, with their new windows and doors, we don't have that issue around the Casa Franks at this point, knock on wood. But yes, until we had those repaired, there was an issue.
Because someone told me if you see a ladybug, isn't it supposed to be good luck or something good's about to happen? Well, that's true.
I know you're not supposed to harm them.
Yes, we love the ladybugs. God love the ladybug. Well, you're on the show, so that means it's a harbinger. Don't you love these big terms we're using? A harbinger of good things to come. So, Johnny, let's talk about what's going on. I'll tell you right now. To me, my job on this show is to bring on the best guests out there, the greatest minds. And Tony Barnhart said something last week, and I bet you'll agree because we're the same age. He said, too many people today that do call themselves reporters or journalists are too quick to insert personal opinions on what they maybe want to happen versus putting the facts together. And that's what I love about you is you're fair, but if you have the facts and you feel strongly about it, you're not afraid to express an opinion. So kind of like at a bullfight, I'm opening up that door. Dun, 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 here comes Johnny. Let's go.
Well, I go back about 25, 30 years ago even. There were reporters that I actually dealt with that already knew how they wanted their story to play out. What you're taught and the way stories are supposed to happen is you gather the quotes, you gather the facts, and then you present the story. You're not supposed to have an angle one way or the other. Now, columns and opinionated pieces, different story. But if you're actually writing a story, if you're covering a story, then you don't, in your mind, already have an idea which way it's going. You get the quotes and allow the quotes to help tell the story. but I've dealt with individuals as far as in my days in media relations where they would literally already have an idea of what they wanted to do with the story and then get the quotes to back it up. Now, it may take them 20 or 30 people to interview to get that quote, but they'll eventually find the quote they're looking for. I'll give you a good example. I've been very, very outspoken. And for me, I think I was the only one even talking about the whole Pete Maravich record with Antoine Davis, 12 weeks ago. I was bringing it up before Christmas even. It was not even on anybody's radar until, by the way, on the second game last week in the Horizon Conference tournament, Antoine Davis had a chance to tie and surpass Pete Maravich. And that's when all of a sudden it became a really major story. But for me, I was, calling out, there's this conference, and this is, I didn't even realize this. We have the NCAA tournament, we have the NIT tournament, then we have two more. Well, one of them does not require winning records. Only thing they require, basically means you haven't earned anything on a court or anything. If you got the $500,000, so just over $27,000. If you have that, then you can buy your way into a tournament, even if you are 14-19. And look, they were in there last year at 14-15, and they immediately, talking about Detroit Mercy, they immediately lose by double digits to Florida Gulf Coast to finish 14-16. I'm curious why all this conversation, whether or not they should buy into this tournament, because Rick Giles and the Gazelle Group, to me, is the epitome of what's wrong in college sports today with this tournament. And the only thing that matters to them is exposure and money. Buy your way. I was intrigued by a couple of articles that came out from a national standpoint, and they were really promoting the fact that, oh, yes, there'd be ridiculous not to spend the money to get that exposure. They can bank on that for the next 3 or 4 decades, probably forever, because that record will never be surpassed again. And so because of it, but I go back to even last year, Antoine Davis got the benefit of 24 extra points in a game that they had no business being in. Why is the NCAA even allowing tournaments like this if they're not promoting integrity, if they're not promoting excellence? The fact that we're not, you can be 5 games under 500 and be able to play in a postseason game. Now, if you've earned it in your basketball conference tournament, where you've won 3 or 4 games in a row, and now you're the representative for that conference, thumbs up. Detroit Mercy hasn't earned anything.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like lowering the bar to make people feel good about themselves. Throw that crap out the window. We don't. That's wrong. What Pete Maravich did, freshman couldn't play then. He did it in 3 years in a Power 5 conference. They didn't win the national championship or anything like that, but he was incredible. And we have Johnny Newman. Was another great one out of Memphis, out of Overton High School.
Right.
Went to Ole Miss. Another one of those mystery. But I'm with you. And here's another thing. If you're the all-time leading rusher at a Power 5 school, at least in the SEC, and you broke that record 20 or 30 years ago, you set that record. I doubt it's going to be broken anytime soon. With players, leaving. If they think they're good, they all do. They better. They're going to go to the NFL after 3 years, or they're going to transfer and just disappear. That happens. And you're right about the integrity. What does it mean to be a student athlete? I think personally, if a guy wants to be a one and done, don't insult people and be a fake student. Just go to some league and go to the NBA. That I don't know. Look, I want the best players out there, but how fans want to follow a team and instead of the ticker at the bottom of the screen, because players are leaving, coming and going every day.
I go back to it. It's not just a college sports and college athletics issue. To me, this also represents what that university stands for. And am I calling out the integrity of Detroit Mercy? Yes. And if they allow this to happen, to me, this is the message the president's office at Detroit Mercy is sending out. It's okay to be mediocre. It's okay to be subpar. It's okay not to have success. We're going to reward that. We're going to reward. You know how
Yeah.
I grew as a person, as an individual growing up? I watched somebody get recognized as, better than me. And what did I do? Did I take my ball and go home? Did I go mope in my room? No, I made myself a better person. And now we get there's part of our society today that, you can't hurt little Rob's feelings. You can't hurt little Johnny's feelings by awarding a most valuable player. You got to give everybody awards, and because you can't hurt their feelings. As Nick Saban is proud of always talking about the fact of learning, don't waste a failure. Don't waste a loss, because that's where you learn more as an individual. If you talk to Nick Saban and ask him about any particular game to bring up, he's not going to dwell on the national championships that he has won as a head coach. He's going to talk about those near misses and what you learn from those near misses.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And this stuff of trying to make everybody feel good, no. You always look up. You always want to look up and hold up in high esteem the best who do it the right way. Now, again, trying to say, and that's the problem. I love the bowl games, but we've got it now in football. You're getting in because they've got to fill the quota with sub 500 teams getting into baseball. I mean, college bowl games. Mississippi State did it just 3 years ago with a 5-7 record. And God, if you lose, if you're 5-7, you lose, you're 5-8. I mean, that's horrible. And
why are we? Here's the funny thing is, in these contracts with some of these head coaches and ADs out there, you're rewarding these coaches by going 6-6. They made a bowl game. Oh, that's an extra paycheck for the coach. That's an extra paycheck for the AD. Why? Why do we have so many bowl games and you're rewarding 6-6? College sports, high school sports, it's all about growing as a person and learning teamwork and growing as individuals. How are you growing in that capacity? I go back trying as a college football historian, especially, I go back to some of those years, like in the 60s, for example, and trying to determine national championships that were decided by people, not by what happened on a football field, but decided by individuals like you and me and putting out their top, 20, top 25 at the time. And, and look at how you can compare one team that took that extra game and won it compared to a team that did not have that opportunity to play another team better or as good. And because we don't know how that would have played out. Notre Dame was notorious for not playing bowl games during that time frame.
Oh, yeah, they did.
I look at their national championship in '66 that they, quote unquote, shared with Michigan State, and Alabama, back-to-back national titles in '64, '65. They played their bowl game, won their bowl game. Notre Dame gets to sit home with that 10-10 tie and say, okay, we're good. There's our national championship.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, along those lines, you and me both love to look at the history. Go back, first football game, November 6th, 1869, up in New Jersey. Rutgers 6, Princeton 4. He had 25 players on each side of the field, 50. It was a rugby scrum. And most of those guys, a lot of those guys probably had fought in the war between the states. You're talking 4 years after. Now, you look at the national championships, Princeton, Yale, Harvard. I mean, they got it every year. It really was Alabama going to the Rose Bowl in 1925 and beating Washington 20-19. That's when the South really took on. But prior to that, 1892, it started in the South. You had Auburn with Mike Donahue, won 3 national championships. He was an incredible. He barely spoke English. He spoke Gaelic. But I think you're right. The way the old national championships were determined. UPI in 1964 gave the championship out before the bowl game. And if you lost the bowl game, you weren't penalized. 1973, I think Associated Press, the Alabama Notre Dame 23-22. Alabama had already been declared national champion. They lost. And that all changed after that. But you still had teams in the SEC being declared champion who played an extra game or two. And another team only lost 1 game and beat them head to head and did not get the SEC championship. How in the world did that go on for so long? I know
you're an Auburn guy. I go back. You know who really should have been the first Heisman Trophy winner for the Auburn Tigers? And look, Pat Sullivan was on my very first show back in 2008, but it shouldn't have been Pat Sullivan. It should
Tucker
have been
Frederickson.
well, it should have been Bo Jackson of all the three that won, because Pat Sullivan got his and there was still an Iron Bowl game to be played. People think that Doug Flutie locked up his Heisman Trophy with the Hail Mary pass that knocked off Miami of Florida the day after Thanksgiving. The votes were already in. It's not in a time period now where you can email your vote in. Back then, you had to put it in snail mail, and the votes were already in before Boston College surprised the Hurricanes of Miami that day after Thanksgiving. And so you look at all these things that's happened in history, and I've never been a fan of, and I know it was a system, so you'll claim it. But as far as my eyes, my research tells me, for example, everybody wants to take away 2 of Alabama's national titles, and that's great. And one of them especially so in the 40s. However, with that said, I will counter and give you 2 more that they should have received. 66 and 77. That 77 team for Alabama knocked off Ole Miss by 3 touchdowns. The very next week, that Ole Miss team beat Notre Dame, and yet at the end, all things given, Notre Dame goes from 5-1. Alabama was number 2 going into the Iron Bowl. They blow out Auburn, drop to number 3. How that would happen today in today's world, it wouldn't. And then Bama blows out Ohio State 35-6 in the Sugar Bowl, and they finished at number 2. I will always argue, if Alabama had been number 2 instead of number 3, which they should have been, then Notre Dame would not have gone from 5-1. Alabama would have won that national championship.
Johnny, I was going to say same thing with Alabama. You can take away some of them, but there's some that they didn't get that you got to give them back. So then, just like Auburn claims a couple, they've got 10. You might as well claim them. But here's another thing I think about that. When Notre Dame beat Texas in 77, Joe Montana, Earl Campbell, they went from 5th to 1. Look what happened in 1983. Before the game was even played, I'm at the Fairmont Hotel in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, Auburn versus Michigan. All right, number 1's Nebraska. Number 2 is Texas, who had beaten Auburn 20-7 earlier in the season. Number 3 was Auburn. Number 4 was Georgia. Well, number 5 was Miami. They did a poll of the Knight Ridder sports writers, and the majority of them, 32 out of 61, said if Miami 5th beats number 1 Nebraska, they're going to jump everybody and make Miami national champion.
Right.
Maybe Auburn barely winning with Al Del Greco's last-second field goal 9-7 over Michigan wasn't good enough. If Auburn would have won 42-0, but I think there was a narrative, as you say, already in the bank. Just they had their minds made up, and that's criminal.
I will say this, though, about that Nebraska team. Up to that point, it was probably the best college football team ever. And I will also go back to the fact that if Tom Osborne kicks the extra point instead of going for 2, Nebraska would have been national champs anyway. So that's, with all that said, I understand if you're an Auburn fan. First of all, Auburn had no business only getting by with the field goal. They should have sent a statement, and they didn't. Yeah. And Miami sent a statement. Miami was such a huge underdog to Nebraska. Miami's statement was the fact they beat Nebraska. But I still go back, coaching decisions. It was a decision made by Tom Osborne. He wouldn't have been able to live with himself knowing he played for a tie and played for the national championship. I go back to Ara Parseghian and Notre Dame and their win over Michigan State in '66. They played for the tie instead of actually trying to go down the field and score a go-ahead field goal. They didn't. They milked it for a tie, and they got rewarded for it. Nebraska would have been rewarded with a national championship if the only blemish was a tie to the Hurricanes of Miami.
Yeah, and I remember that game so well. But there and you can find a number of examples where the national media, again, I think it was the Big Ten until the early 70s did not let their teams play in bowl games other than the one representative going to the Rose Bowl.
Absolutely. And by the way, before we run out of time, I want to go back to the whole Pete Maravich, Antoine Davis thing, because of, I'm one of these individuals. I don't just present problems. I actually present solutions. And I actually called up the leadership at Detroit Mercy and gave them an out. I gave them, right now they're talking about the publicity that they would receive if they buy into this extra game, although they have no business playing in a postseason game after their conference tournament.
Johnny, hold that thought.
Sure.
that thought, because I see where you're going, and exactly what my dad always says: don't just go to a meeting complaining, go offering solutions, and you'll get what you want. We'll be right back with Johnny Ballpark Franks after this.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Johnny Ballpark Franks, continue on where you were going, because this is valuable information.
Well, what I did, it's one thing to say, okay, Antoine Davis, Detroit Mercy has no right to be able to buy their way into this tournament with a record of 14 wins, 19 losses. So I know that there's probably individuals on that campus, and this is what I was thinking at the end of last week, that's torn. You've got the individuals realizing there's nothing ethical about this. This lacks in integrity. And then you got the others, especially fans. Oh, this kid has earned the right to be in this situation. And I will say he earned the right to come close, but not get the record. The extra year, the extra game last year, they had no business playing in. And then it would take another game, in this case, if Detroit Mercy wouldn't even be in this tournament if they buy their way in without the fact the Antoine Davis on the verge of passing Pete Maravich. So not just pointing out the problem, I came up with a solution and how they can look good, generate 10 to 100 times the publicity in a positive way, and send a great message, not just for college athletics at Detroit Mercy, but also send a great message as far as the university as a whole. Because right now, if Antoine Davis and, oh, by the way, Mike Davis, the head coach, his son is Antoine Davis. Mike Davis, former Alabama player, former head coach at Indiana, at UAB, and Texas Southern. And I'm like, I go back to the fact, looking at his underachieving record at Detroit Mercy, I wonder if the bigger question this week is, how is he still coaching? How come his job's not in jeopardy? But anyway, with all that said, so I presented the things, make a statement there on the local TV, find your favorite local television station. I'd probably go with ABC since they're tied with ESPN. Go there, get a video statement saying, although we would love to see this record had been broken in the Horizon Conference tournament, because of the situation, because of the integrity of college basketball, because the integrity of this great record, we have chosen not to participate in this tournament. Because to us, we don't want to reward subpar performances. At our university and our college athletics department, we are striving for excellence. We are striving to make a difference. We're striving to be better individuals. And with that said, to us, it doesn't speak good of our program and our university if we allow this record to go down in this fashion. So with that said, we are striving for excellence for all of our students, not just our student athletes. And so because of that, we are choosing not to participate in this tournament coming up in 2 weeks. And that's what I presented to them. So we'll see which way they come with it. Because then I said, take that interview, make sure that the sports director at that local station in Detroit gets it to ABC, gets it to ESPN, gets it to the SEC network. Tell me that that's not going to, in this time and climax that we have with name, image, and likeness and all the negativity that's out there in the sports world, tell me how that message wouldn't resonate across the country with a program actually standing up for something that actually resembles integrity instead of finding ways to cheat the system.
Well, your honor is dearer than your life. That is a motto that, I've heard all my life, that my great-great-grandfather said. And you look in the climate today, there's some people, well, you can't say that. Yeah, you can. And Johnny, it is so rare that people have an individual thought. It's even more rare that someone did what you just did in today's climate, where everybody just rolls over and says, well, that's just the way it is. No, it's not. I am so glad. Will you keep us? I know you will, because when you come on the show, keep us updated. We're waiting on that answer. Give me a 50-50, 75-25. It'll happen. What do you think?
It depends on who the leadership on that campus listens to. If they listen to the fan base, then this team will play. If they listen to their hearts and their souls or minds, because I'm not going to say who I talked to yet, but who I was talking to, who is a major role player in this situation, in this scenario, he was looking for a phone call like mine. He was looking for a solution like mine. And so at least I gave him some ammunition to fight for what's right. But the thing that really is alarming to me, and we saw this with the whole Alabama situation with Brandon Miller. And by the way, the reason why Alabama should have suspended indefinitely Brandon Miller and his teammate when they found out their involvement, not because they were guilty, but because you don't know if they're guilty or not guilty. And look what just transpired. Remember, this happened a week after Georgia won their national championship, right, in football. What just came out this past week? That Jalen Carter may or may not have been involved on the scene of that accident that night. What if Jalen Carter, who, by the way, right now being projected #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, what happens if he had an extra year of eligibility? What if he was a current student athlete at Georgia? And the fact that none of this had come out for 2 months almost. I mean, that's why any situation, you don't have to have a innocent or guilty situation on these campuses with these student athletes. Remember, you need to protect the university first and foremost, because the university has been there a long time before these student athletes and these coaches, and will be there a long time afterwards. But that's why you suspend individuals like this until you do your own investigation, until you know what exactly happened. And that's why, to me, although it worked out, it seems like it's worked out for Alabama in the long run. To me, what they should have done didn't happen.
Well, you're already seeing, and I saw Kevin Skarbinski referenced this on social media, and Kevin's a regular on our show. We love having him on. He said the John Wooden Award, the 15 finalists, Brandon Miller's name was not on that list. And he referenced that, the negative effects of this are already kicking in. And that's what happens. In the court of public opinion, it's not looked upon favorably. And that's tough. I mean, but the Georgia situation, and I was texting with Mark Schlabach last night, ESPN.com. He's on a plane right now, but we're going to get him on. But, he was reporting on Paul Feinbaum's show Friday on that Georgia situation. I'll just say this. I don't know what the law is in Georgia, or you pick the state. What is the law if you are in an accident and you leave the scene and then people are injured or worse? I mean, what are the rulings on that? What are the rulings at Alabama in the student code of conduct that say if you are driving on campus with a firearm, loaded or not, and I got plenty of guns. I hunt and fish, but I have respect for firearms, and I would be madder than you've ever seen in your life if you had a gun in the back of my truck and I didn't know about it, and you were drinking.
I go
and
back.
You just left it in there. Because what if I got pulled over? There's so many possibilities with this.
I'm intelligent.
Go ahead.
I have common sense, but also I have street smarts, and especially the street smart standpoint. Unfortunately, the way I grew up, my parents had a grocery store, and also a pool hall in the suburbs of Birmingham in the Woodlawn area. And I'll just give you an example. When we were growing up there from 69 to 75 in Birmingham and that in the Woodlawn area, we got robbed 4 times. Guess what the average response time for the police in that area for an armed robbery?
Minutes? 45 minutes.
And I'm not exaggerating there. It wasn't like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, 45 minutes, because it's just, you basically policed yourself in that neighborhood. And so that's why I talk about street smarts. Everybody just seeing this story as a whole just assumes that it's going to play out one way just because your own personal experiences in your life, how you grew up. I just go back to the area where, Cane Ridge High School, Antioch, Tennessee. Antioch is 3 miles to our east where we live right now. Is it like Detroit? Is it like Compton in LA? No. However, that particular high school is, and this is not stats I'm making up, you can Google it right now, of all the middle schools, high schools, schools in general in city of Nashville. And Antioch, by the way, is Nashville. So it's for everybody who thinks it's an hour away from Nashville, it's not. But Cane Ridge High School is the 5th most violent high school in the city as far as fights are concerned. So going back to that line of thinking, Brandon Miller would have to be the most naive individual in the world if he didn't know his teammate had a gun and didn't have a gun in the back seat that night.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. But sua sponte, that's Latin for of your own accord, of your own volition. Right. You got to take care of yourself. But they got to work that thing out. But if you keep if too many athletes, and we see this happen all the time, they're scooted along to the front of the line throughout grade school, middle school, high school, college, because they're bigger, faster, stronger, never held accountable for anything. And so basically these parents that are out there screaming and cussing at the refs and, just the kid sees that. Those parents are enablers. And, and I think that, to me, if I was a coach, the first thing I would have done, I would expect that the university council, the president, media relations would have sat us down and said, look, we gotta look at the big picture here. Let's sit them all down, sort through this, get the facts, and then do something. The optics on this are terrible at Alabama. And now you got the problem, and just see what happens. If nobody's guilty, it'll be proven. Okay. And same thing with Georgia. This guy says he wasn't at the scene of the accident, Jalen Carter. And then he showed up an hour and a half, 2 hours later. Do I have it right, Johnny? I mean, that's not good. And saying it's just a misdemeanor with some flippant response. I mean, you were drag racing apparently. Isn't that true? And 2 people died. They were weaving in and out of traffic, going against the traffic. I mean, look what happened.
The fact that if he was there and left the scene, we don't know if he had been drinking with his teammates or not. And that's the part we'll never know. And so you say, it's just a misdemeanor. However, if he had stayed, if he had, say he was over the limit as far as, and he's legally drunk and now we're talking about different ramifications. And so this is when I just go back to the fact, and this is common knowledge. It's not like it has to be proven in court or anything, but until you get the facts, when you're with working inside of university, and I've worked inside a university. So if anybody has a different opinion and they've never worked inside sports, then, your opinion doesn't, I'll take your opinion, but until you actually have that actual real life experience working inside sports, then sometimes your opinion is just an opinion, not really based on anything that's really relevant. And so not unless your own family member was involved. And so I just go back to the fact that what should have happened and what did happen, and the reason why there's still all this negativity towards Tuscaloosa and the University of Alabama is because of the fact that they didn't suspend indefinitely these 2 players until they got all the facts.
Yeah, this just came in from one of our listeners. Oh my goodness. Elvira Scroggins in Utah, Alabama says, in the case of Jalen Carter, did he flee the scene because he had done something wrong?
Right. We don't know.
He did flee the scene. So look, again, lawyers, district attorneys, state laws, they're all different, but Johnny, you're right. Look, you got to live with yourself the rest of your life, knowing you were part of that. And do you think he wrote that statement, or was that looked like a lawyer wrote it? I mean, come on.
Yeah. But then again, though, look what you're protecting. You're protecting your future, your kids' future, your grandkids' future, so forth and so on. I mean, once again, going into what came out last week, we're talking about being projected as the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft in April. So look at what's at stake. And, eventually, folks should. I mean, the right thing to do is be able to come, own up these things. I use the example, well, Brandon Miller said this or that. Any particular student athlete or in that situation, I just go back to all the lies that I've heard in my lifetime. Remember, I'm not a crook. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Look at all the Pete Rose. I never bet on baseball. I mean, look at all the things that were proven wrong down the road. And so I don't give really anybody the benefit of the doubt. I look at the scenario, I look at myself, and I know if someone has a gun and they're getting in my car, guess what? I'm going to know there's a gun in the backseat of my car.
Yeah.
And I'm going to know. Here's the other thing that I wish it all. And Frank, and Rob, this is the other thing I wish would have happened. What happened at Virginia? Remember, they stopped the rest of their football season last year when 3 of their football players were shot and murdered by, and so it's not just Power 5 conferences out there as far as teams. Every team from West Coast to East Coast, where there's serious discussions inside those athletic departments. Do we have a gun problem, a gun culture with our student athletes? How many? I haven't heard Alabama make a statement like that. I haven't heard Auburn make a statement like that. I haven't heard USC or UCLA. The list goes on and on and on. Another situation happened with the New Mexico State's basketball team this year. Are they having these serious discussions on campus and what's being done about it? And that's the part we don't know. But my guess is a lot of programs across the country drop the ball on it.
Yeah, you got to hold people accountable. And I don't care if you're going to be the first player taken in the draft. I'm talking at any school. That shouldn't matter. What matters is right and wrong. The death of right and wrong in this country, blurring the lines, has significantly negative consequences. And it's a diametrically opposing argument anyone is trying to make, to say, let's protect him and his future while all this other bad stuff happened. Let's find a way to get him out of that. You're going to rot in downstairs if you go for that route. I mean, you can't be that way. Look, the facts will all come out, but and that's why I want to get smart reporters on here that are privy to information maybe that none of us have, but we got to get to the bottom of it. But we got Frank Duffy's on with us right now, on his way, I guess, back to Tiger Town for the Detroit Tigers as the stadium announcer for their spring Grapefruit League game, not the Cactus League, but the Grapefruit League. Johnny Ballpark Franks is with us. We got about a minute before the break, and Johnny, stay with us if you can. If not, I know we'd love having you on here, but we're going to get into some more stuff about the basketball, the baseball, the college. But if anything, in college athletics right now, media relations directors, you would think, would have sat down with Nate Oates and said, just don't say anything. A lot of people, they ought to know better than that.
I don't think media relation folks are empowered like they used to be. I think now agents have too much of a role, and I think that's what blurs those lines per se. I don't think media relations directors across the country are as powerful as they was, for example, when I had the job back in the 80s and 90s. I think it's a totally changed landscape today.
Yeah. Take a quick break. We're going to be right back, because it used to be the sports information director was the gatekeeper, kind of like when I'm trying to get hold of somebody and you got to go through their secretary. That's the gatekeeper. Send her flowers on her birthday. Send her some chocolate candy. Do something. But we need to have people that are in decision-making roles that are responsible, that have an IQ above 70. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Mark Franks is with us. I know you got to go. Johnny, say goodbye, and we'll do it again this next week. But really love having you on here.
Rob and Frank, hope you guys have a great week. Just a reminder, you can keep up with everything I do on Twitter at BP Frank Show. Also, you can follow me on Facebook at Johnny Ballpark Franks. Every Monday, 5 to 7 in the afternoon Central Time, I have my weekly show now, concentrating on everything from football, basketball, and everything in between. But it's always fun to join you guys.
Oh, absolutely. Love it, man. See you again next week. Okay. Frank Duffy, get him back here with us in just a moment. Johnny Ballpark Franks on the ump on Mondays up in Huntsville. Tune in, listen, and learn. Guys, what's really interesting to me is when you look at the actions that, high-profile people, everybody, there's always a camp of people out there that are trying to protect this person. Whether it's agents, whoever, because they got a vested interest in them, and they're going to make money off of them. Instead, but let's make sure we get it right, and don't just push people to the front of the line just because they can run fast or throw a ball or whatever like that. That part of it right there is very difficult for me. I'm not buying it. Okay. I mean, I want to get a reporter like a Mark Schlabach or a Tony Barnhart, that are close to Georgia, and they're legitimate. They're true grit journalists. I want to hear what they say, but just on the surface, you're involved. If you are, involved in drag racing, speeding, and there's alcohol involved, I mean, it's not going to end well. And look at Michael Vick. He came out, owned up to what he did wrong back when he was in the NFL playing for the Falcons. And he didn't waste time on a trial. He just said, check me in, man. I want to get this over with. Okay. You look at Audrey, who was another one you were talking about that did something stupid. But other than Michael Vick, there was some other people. But, I mean, you find other examples of players that come clean and admit their wrongdoing. Tiger Woods came out, You think he's the only player on the PGA to ever have a little wild side, I mean, that's why nobody else on the PGA was coming out ripping him. I mean, all the people that live in, glass houses were. But Tiger Woods, he's loved and respected by people because he owned up to his mistakes. That's why. Yeah, Frank, we're having difficulty with you. Can't seem to really.
We're not.
Yeah, go ahead, Frank. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying there was a lot of people, Rob. There was a lot of people that really did not like Tiger. And his actions didn't win him a lot of fans, but the fact that he did own up to it, I think got a lot of people in his corner. In fact, I was one of them. I was never a big Tiger guy. I was a Jack guy. I didn't want Jack's record to be broken. However, I was pulling for Tiger to win that Masters. I wanted to see him come back after fessing up to it, owning up to it, which he did. He did it like a man. I wanted to see him win that next majors that you didn't think you would ever win after, 11 years, 12 years. So I think that was a great story. But you're exactly right. You do something wrong, you fess up to it. By the way, it's never the act that gets you. It's the cover up. And we were joking about, great lines. I am no crook. I didn't have sex with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. By the way, there's another lie. That COVID was, some bat in some Wuhan marketplace. That was bullshit too. That came from a communist Chinese lab. But don't get me started on that. But I agree with you. You've got to come clean. If you come clean, you at least have the ability for people to cheer for you as a reclamation. We all love a good comeback story. We all do. Yep. Now, it's funny, Rob, that when I was able to get on after my honeydew list, by the way, when you leave from Tigertown, USA, drive back 8.5 hours, you get 1 day at home. The honeydew list is long. I'm just telling you, it's long. So that's why I was able to hop on. I wanted to be on a little bit early today, but here's the thing. Johnny Ballpark and I texted back and forth on Saturday when all this stuff was coming out about Antoine Davis and Detroit Mercy. Now, I know they're not going to the NIT. Thankfully, they're not doing that. But has anything been said yet about the CBI of whether they're going to invite them? Because you talk about doing the right thing in this segment. Detroit Mercy needs to do the right thing and not go to the CBI with a losing record. They're like 14-19. For that kid to break Pete Maravich's record, I would be absolutely apoplectically livid if Pete Maravich's all-time scoring record. Again, I'm an LSU guy. I get it. I'm a homer. But what Pete did in 3 years with no three-point line, freshmen couldn't play, and the fact that he would lose the all-time scoring record to a kid that got 5 years. Now look, tip your cap to him, respect the kid, which we would, Louisiana people would, and in fact, if Detroit Mercy turns it down, or if Detroit Mercy does play the game, and the young man realizing that, hey, the right thing would be to sit and not break the record. If they did that, if they put a crowdfunding thing on, let me tell you, doing the right thing, Louisiana would flood money in. Look what we did for Joe Burrow's Feed Athens, Ohio program, crowdfunding. Look what we did for crowdfunding when Cole, who kicked the winning kick against Auburn 4 or 5 years ago. He was a kicker that we wound up getting in the transfer portal from a little Catholic Assumption College in Massachusetts. When Cole Tracy hit the winning kick against Auburn in Jordan-Hare, the crowdfunding went up to, I think it was something like $300,000 that Louisianans paid to this little Catholic college in Massachusetts. Do the right thing, Detroit Mercy. Turn down this CBI invitation because they're doing it just because they want the publicity. Do not taint a record. Do not make that young man live his life under an asterisk. Ask Barry Bonds what an asterisk has done for him, and Mark McGuire, and Sammy Sosa, and Rafael Palmeiro, and Roger Clemens. Do not live with the asterisk. Do the honorable thing. Keep your 14-19 record of ass at home, and do not taint a college basketball record that has been on the books since 1970. Do not do it to college basketball.
I agree with you. And this just came in from Shep Proudfoot in Austin, Texas. Shep says, Roger Clemens never owned up to steroid deliveries by FedEx and is still not trusted by many, even those kids that played at Texas, his alma mater. Bottom line,
that's exactly right. Ken Capps will tell you that. He has not been invited back to Texas. He is a pariah at Texas because a good program, a great baseball program, hey, Augie didn't build that friggin' program to have cheaters. That's a black stain. You ask Ken Capps about that. I'll guarantee he says that. It doesn't matter. If you've got an alum and they don't do the right thing and they bring a stain and dishonor to your program, let me tell you something. Darius Geis, he wouldn't be invited back to LSU to fish.
Well, here's the problem.
I'm telling you.
Frank, you're breaking up a little bit. But let me say this: that any player, any student athlete, professional, college, whatever, man, woman, if you bring shame and disgrace to your school, you better come clean and ask for forgiveness. The problem is, a lot of people out there try to cover for these guys and make excuses for them. I don't want to hear that. I'm gonna tell you. Look over my shoulder. Who is that right there? Tom the Turkey. Tom has been listening to this, and Tom says they're all full of it. He goes,
do the honorable thing.
Yeah.
It's easy to do. It's easy to do the easy thing. It's going to be real easy for the CBI, whatever the hell that is, some basketball bullshit tournament. It'd be real easy for them. That'll be real easy for them to goose up their ratings by having this happen. Whatever Tom, Dick, and Harry television network, whatever that is, they would absolutely be doing the wrong thing by
Frank.
It's hard to do the hard thing. It's easy to do the easy thing.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, I think the problem we have in this country with too many high-profile people is they're not held accountable, and that's the problem. You got to hold people accountable. I don't care. Nobody is above the law. Mildred and I watched last night on Netflix the Murdaugh murder story, the Murdaugh Southern scandal. Holy cow! Now look, I mean, that's what happens when you enable people to go on and on and on controlling justice for 100+ years in a certain county. People feel like they'll do whatever they want to until finally you have the cracks around them. But Roger Clemens, think about Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire when they were back in '98. Okay, Sammy Sosa didn't need a baseball hat. He was using so much juice, he had a visor coming off his forehead. And Mark McGwire was taking so much stuff, his face looked like a pepperoni pizza. I mean, it was craters in there. It was gross. Sammy Sosa takes those guys seriously.
Sammy Sosa's English was so good during that 1998 run for the batting title, and all of a sudden his English got real sketchy after he got called out for the juice. Then you got Rafael Palmeiro, who goes on and in front of Congress and makes this huge, big Pollyannish sort of speech. He's involved in it too. Look at again, the poster boy Barry Bonds, and look, A-Rod, another one, right? So let me tell you something. Do the right thing. It's easier to do it's hard to do the right thing, but in the end, it's easier on your life. And you know what? An old person once told me, tell the damn truth. It's the easiest thing to remember. Have honor.
You're right. Yeah. Hey, think about it. Again, my great-great-grandfather is buried in Helena, Arkansas, Maple Hill Confederate Cemetery. Says there, on his stone, your honor is dearer than your life. That's a big deal. No, and I'm going to tell you something. Right. I don't care. You know what? These guys you talked about that were using steroids and the juice and lied about it publicly and openly, and you say, well, they're just under a lot of pressure. No, they're cheaters. They are cheaters.
Destroy the game.
They're a disgrace to the game. Shame on them. There shouldn't be one asterisk. They should be a mark through their name to wash them and cleanse them from the history books, because they're as bogus as a football bat and a $3 bill.
Yep. I love baseball. I played baseball, growing up. I love baseball. I love the strategy of baseball. I love the history of baseball, the lore of baseball. No sport has such sacrimonious defense of their numbers and their figures and their statistics as baseball does. What that whole crew did in the late 90s was they bastardized everything about our numbers. Everything now has asterisks behind it, thanks to them. They did it for their own personal gratification, and that's a load of horse shit, right?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, come to Atlanta here. I'm driving in the North Georgia mountains right now. I'm heading back down to Tampa. You come to Atlanta, and you ask anybody who the home run king is, his name is Henry Aaron. It will always be Henry Aaron until somebody in this era that was not in that other era breaks Henry Aaron's record, which will never happen for home runs.
Yeah.
Never happen.
Yeah. I remember watching 715 for Hank Aaron. And you look at these players today, and you look at them one year, their size, the next year, I mean, they've got a visor protruding over their forehead from all the juice they're using.
Yeah.
They got a face full of
Cro-Magnon.
Yeah, they look primitive. I mean, just what it does to your body. I mean, roid rage, we all know about that. I mean, there's guys that you knew in college that took roids at 3:00 in the morning, wanting to get in a fight with everybody, including their own shadow. You know, they were so paranoid, but they have disgraced baseball. Here's an interesting thing that came in from one of our listeners, Jerry Lundergarden, Bremen, Minnesota. Interesting point.
Up there,
he said,
up near Fargo.
Yeah, sure. Riley Diefenbach, wondering where those car loans are coming from there. Yeah, I'll get them to you. I'll get my girl to send them to you there, okay? But let me say this. This is from Riley Diefenbach from Northwest Financial up there in Minneapolis, St. Paul. He says, Tiger built up a lot of credibility, street cred, with fellow PGA golfers because what he did to expand the income of every professional golfer. But Tiger owned up to it, dadgummit, and he did. Yeah. And then we all know it's like a feeding frenzy. Once somebody comes out and makes an accusation, everybody lawyers up, and they all try to get a piece of the rock, okay? That's correct. What happens. I'm going to tell you something, Frank. We've thinking about all the bovine secretions that people try to push on us every day, the narratives. God bless America. Free speech needs to come back. Quit being afraid to say the truth. We've got people out here that are afraid, well, what is the definition of is? What is? We all know where that crap came from. Bottom line is you got to, what did Barney Fife say? You got to nip it in the bud, Andy. Nip it in the bud. And as Gomer said, how'd you get your voice to do like that, Dr. Pendyke? Right after this. All right, Frank, we got a listener. Frank, if you're still there in the mountains of North Georgia, from Big Canoe to Lakeland, Florida, the voice of the Detroit Tigers in the Grapefruit League, live at the PA Stadium. All right, Frank, we got a caller. Someone just came in on the special line. I'd like to talk to you. Cool. Frank, you pretty fired up today about all this. I tell you a story. My daughter from Lisbon come over, and she used to tell me Sammy Sosa could speak any language in the world, and she'd holler.
Yeah, good.
Hey, look, I'm going to tell you something. You watch over and over and over how many times high-profile people get away with things. Yep. But bottom line is when you do something wrong, you know better than anybody. Just come clean with it, and it doesn't matter.
You got to look the man in the mirror in the face every day when you shave.
Yeah,
you got to do. I mean, you got to do the right thing. It just life's easier that way. It's like when like I invest. Of course, you being a financial guy, Rob, I do a lot of my own investment. I'm pretty good at it, but I got to have the sleep test. I got to be able to sleep at night. I can't be margin to the hilt. I can't be, on these risky things because you can't sleep at night. You've got to be able to go and live with yourself. And some of this stuff, I don't know how you can do that. And whether you're in charge of a basketball program who's covering for somebody who might have done something illegal and you know about it and you sweep it under the rug, or you're a coach and you find out there's sexual improprieties and sexual misconduct and you sweep it under the rug because you don't want to, rock the boat in your program. It always comes out. It's always going to hit the airwaves. I'm telling you, many times the act is not the worst thing. It's the cover up that gets you. Look at Watergate. If they don't cover that up, if the Nixon administration doesn't cover it up, it's a two-bit burglary. They get slapped on the wrist. It's done. It's always the after effect. Yeah. And look, there's no cleaning it up after that point. You think Alabama could come out and by any of their actions and put the genie back in the bottle and not take the hit? No. The hit's already done. Yeah. Everybody in the country's cheering against Alabama not to go far in the tournament. It just is. You got to learn from it. And what? You got all those people on the payroll, and you don't think it's a bad look for the kid coming out in warm-ups and getting patted down? I heard that happen for many games. That was nothing new. Yeah. It just happened. Somebody took a video of it and it went viral.
Yeah. Well, the coaches have got to do. You're the coach. You're in charge if you're the coach. And the university, again, everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid, Frank. That's the problem we have today. Everybody's afraid of well, I don't want to offend someone. Well, who cares? Just do the right thing. Hey, let's bring Wess Moore on ESPN 103.7 The Buzz over in Little Rock with us right now. Wess, hey, man, it is a Monday, big week ahead of us. Conference tournaments cranking up. Let's address right now the Razorbacks. They've lost 3 in a row. Of course, you've played at Alabama, Tennessee, and then you had Kentucky up in Fayetteville Saturday. Hogs are 8-10 in the league. What do they have to do if they're going to make it to the NCAA tournament? And do you feel confident that they're going to get a bid anyway?
Yeah, I think they're in. Their net ranking is so high, and you look at their schedule, and they're playing Auburn, another NCAA tournament team. So if they lose to Auburn, I don't think that crushes them or hurts their net ranking that much. So I feel like this team is in the NCAA tournament. They've already done enough to do that. The key for this team right now, they need confidence after losing 3 straight games. They just got to start playing better basketball. This is a team that wins because of defense, and their defense the last 3 games has not been good. You give up over 80 points to Kentucky, 75 to Tennessee, and Tennessee's not a great offensive team. They're a great defensive team. And you gave up over 50 points in the second half to Alabama when you lost that game at Tuscaloosa. So
it's in contrast to what Musselman did last year when the Hogs were really peaking. They made that great run. They were on the upswing. He's got to right this ship. These last 3 games, and especially if he loses to Auburn in the SEC tournament, first game in, they're not going in with the trajectory that they had last year. That's for sure.
No, and the schedule wasn't very kind to them. We've talked about it a lot. They had the hardest schedule in the SEC all season, and then you look down the stretch, and they'd just beaten Georgia and Florida, thumped them, and we thought they had turned the corner, and here we go. This is what Musselman does. They start peaking at the end of the year, and they look like they were, but then they had to go to Alabama, to Tennessee, and then you lose to Kentucky at home. And that's the one that kind of bothered me. I thought, look, it's hard to win on the road. These are two, top 10 teams in the country. No shame in losing on the road to those two teams.
Yeah.
But then lose to Kentucky at home and to play the way you played, that was what was concerning to me. And look, Devo gets thrown out of the game. He's their best defensive player. Their defense takes a hit when that happens. But you can see they're a frustrated team, and that frustration boiled over on the court with the way the game was officiated, the way things were going for them. And they just, it just showed that they've got some issues right now, but it's not too late. And that's why I think you need to go to the SEC tournament, get some confidence, get a couple wins. I like their draw. Auburn's a good team, but they're not unbeatable. Texas A&M, they split with Texas A&M earlier this year, so they can beat the Aggies. And then, you get to the weekend, let's see what happens. So, but the main thing, I just want to see this team start playing better defense and get some confidence.
Well, their draw coming in will be greatly enhanced if they can do two wins. I think you're right. I think they've done enough to make the field, but you don't want to go in as an 11 seed. You don't want that. You want a higher seeding.
I've gotten to the point, I don't think these tournaments mean a whole lot unless you win the whole thing, and that's your automatic qualifier. I've seen it year after year where a team goes in, makes a run, you think, well, that's going to help, and it doesn't. Look at the Aggies last year. The run that they finished on, they didn't even get in the NCAA tournament. So I halfway think this committee has their mind made up. They've kind of figured it out, what they're going to do, and I don't see a lot of movement happening on the weekend. And I'll just go back to what I say. This is a good team, and we know Arkansas is a good team, and they're capable of beating anybody in the country. So I don't really care about the seeding. In fact, I would honestly rather be like an 11 seed than an 8-9, because in the second round, if you win that first game, you're going to play the number one seed.
Yeah, number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wes, last year, you had in the previous 2 years, Arkansas has made it to the Elite Eight. The Hogs have really leaned on one of the freshmen each year. This year, you're really playing now with Nick Smith Jr. in there, 4 that are playing significant minutes in every game. That's a lot of the problem right there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. You look at Anthony Black. At times, man, he's looked like what you hear, a top 10 pick, a lottery pick. And then at times, like against Alabama, he struggled. Tennessee, he struggled with turnovers, 6 turnovers against Tennessee. And then Jordan Walsh. Man, when Jordan Walsh is playing and cutting and getting rebounds, he adds so much to this team. And you see why there's talk that Jordan Walsh could be drafted this year because of his athleticism, because of his potential. But then there are other games where you look up and Walsh has 2 points and 1 rebound. And you're like, well, what happened to him? So, yeah, you're right. Those 2 right there, they need to play like sophomores in the NCAA tournament. Nick Smith is, since he's been back, he's been giving Arkansas what they expect out of him. He's a scorer. He's a guy that can shoot the 3. He plays good defense. He's everything that they've hoped he would be. They need some other – and really, I'll tell you what, a lot of what this team is missing is inside presence. And the Mitchell twins, Mikal and Makai, were so good earlier in the year. They shut down Sheboy when they went to Kentucky. Those 2 guys played very good interior defense for much of the season, but I'll tell you, the last couple of weeks, they've kind of disappeared, and it's a big question mark for me. I don't know why. I don't know if there's an injury situation that we don't know about, but they have not played as well as they did earlier in the season, and they need them. And especially when you get to the tournament, when you're playing against other big guys. Auburn has a couple of big guys. They need the Mitchell twins to play like they were earlier in the year.
Yeah, and I look at and Frank and I think both would agree on this one, and you as well, that the conference tournament doesn't mean as much unless you win it. If you get knocked out in the first round, just like in the SEC baseball tournament, as crazy as it sounds, and I never advocate for tanking a game, you got more time to rest up for the NCAA tournament, for the college baseball, for the regional.
There is a benefit. There is a benefit. You're right. You don't want to do it.
Losing.
Yeah.
Yes. So there'll be a lot of Hog fans in Nashville, won't there? They're always, they can take over.
Oh yeah, well, especially if they win Thursday and Friday, then they'll start coming over for the weekend, and the crowd will just grow and grow. And I'm with you guys. Yeah, I want to see them play and get some confidence and start playing better. But there's always that benefit of rest if you do lose. I said earlier this week, guys, this is the best the SEC's been in a while. They're going to get a record or a record tying 8 teams in the NCAA tournament. This reminds me of baseball. You go through the baseball schedule in the SEC, and it's a gauntlet. It is just week in, week out, and it just wears teams down. And I've had so many players and even coaches in the past at Arkansas tell me, when you get into the NCAA tournament, it's like a breath of fresh air. All of a sudden, you're not playing these SEC teams. And I wondered, and I speculated out loud earlier this week on the show, could that be the way this basketball season goes? That it has just been a gauntlet for Arkansas. It's worn them down. They do look worn down to me. That's why I say maybe some rest would do them well. But getting outside and not playing some of these SEC teams in the NCAA tournament, it might be a breath of fresh air. And Arkansas may not be the only team that surprises you and goes on a little run in the NCAA tournament. I just think the old iron sharpens iron. I think the SEC could have a good postseason because of the strength that they've had this year inside the league, getting them prepared to make a run in March.
Yeah, and there's the Coach John Brady was on the show with us Thursday, and he's got a lot of experience at Samford, LSU, Arkansas State. Talked about lottery picks. He said, I've coached a few of them in my day. They can't go out there and have 6 or 7 points and 2 rebounds. Most of them are 20 and 12 night in, night out. They're gonna produce. What a lottery pick was a few years ago and what a lottery pick is considered a lottery pick today, I think are different, but they're only playing a couple of games a week. They want to get to the NBA. Man, I go watch those Grizzlies games at the FedEx Forum, Wes and Frank. Man, those guys might play 4, maybe 5 games a week. But also, y'all notice this during the regular season, they sit starters more than you realize. I mean, hey, when certain teams come to Memphis and we want to see certain players, a lot of times they're just sitting there on the bench and they look okay to me. So, but I think
the new trend, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you see what I'm saying? And I think, Wes, you're right. You get bored. I think the grind part is the mental part. I think physically the players are good to go. It's the mental. I think they get bored playing in that league. And, you get to start. And also, when you get into the NCAA tournament, it's kill or be killed. And I think they play with a lot more hunger and a lot more vigor maybe than they have played in the whole season, Wes.
Well, and Arkansas's got a couple of guys with the Elite Eight experience, and they've been on these runs. But, take Nick Smith, for example. He's been living in Arkansas. He knows. He's watched it firsthand. So this team, it's just you wipe the slate clean, and that's the thing. You just tell the guys what. Yes, it's been a disappointing regular season. Arkansas was picked to finish second by the media.
Yeah, they were,
and they finished 10th. It's a disappoint, no doubt about it. It's a disappointing regular season. There are reasons why it happened, but wipe it out. It's done. That's over with. So forget about the frustration of what you've been going through. Now's the time. No one's going to remember that Arkansas finished 10th in the SEC if they get back to the Elite Eight. All that they'll talk about is a 3rd straight trip to the Elite Eight for Eric Musselman, and this group came together when it counted. So I'm sure that's the message inside the locker room, and they're they're primed to try to make another run like they've done, and that helps when this team is capable or this program has done it. It just becomes almost like expectations. You've been there, done that, so it's not a big deal. It's not as a daunting task when it's happened so many times.
Yeah, we just got a couple of minutes left.
Going back to 40 minutes of hell.
Yeah. I love that, by the way. Nolan Richardson's that was so much fun to watch. But Wes, we got a couple of minutes left, and I'm gonna say, hey folks, do it what you can. Put God first in everything you do. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Don't give to get, give to give if you want to. It means a lot. Wes, what are y'all gonna talk about? Then let people know how they can follow you. You got a great show in the capital city, one of the coolest cities in America, Little Rock, Arkansas. By the way, Wes, would you agree with me? I know you're not the weatherman, but between Little Rock and Memphis, you get some of the craziest weather on every season: spring, summer, winter, or fall. Snow, ice, sleet, tornadoes, hailstorms. About every 2 or 3 days over here in Parkin, we got 30 or 40 mile an hour winds whipping across the prairie off of Crowley's Ridge. But what are y'all going to talk about in the middle of all that craziness?
Well, this week is the high school basketball state championships. We've got 12 championship games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we'll start getting people ready for those state championship games in Hot Springs. We got Bubba Carpenter coming on to talk about the Diamond Hogs' perfect week. They went 4-0. Got a sweep over the weekend. The bad thing for the Diamond Hogs is pitching injuries. Man, it seems like every game and they're going out with a trainer to look at somebody's arm or somebody's shoulder muscle. It's been snake bit is the word. This team right now with the pitching staff. But it was a good week for them winning those games. So Bubba will join us, and we're going to talk, of course, about the SEC tournament and some of the matchups coming up.
Yeah, look, never a dull moment. Frank is Wes. Frank has a great job. Public address announcer at the Detroit Tigers Stadium all spring for their Grapefruit League games. Frank, tell Wes you ought to come. It's pretty cool.
Come on down, man. I'm trying to get Ken Caps and Maury to come on down and hang out for a game or two. Come on down.
Hey, Wes. Wes is the sports anchor, Fox Sports Channel 16 in Little Rock. Wes, always love having you on. Thank you so much, and look forward to next week.
You bet. You guys have a great week.
All right.
You too, Wes. Take care, buddy.
Tomorrow, everybody. Great show. Frank, be careful. We'll be out of here. We'll be back tomorrow, though. Until then, have a great day, everybody.